Dobar dan I dobrodošli na
Good afternoon and welcome on a debate about the situation in the north of Kosovo after local elections, which is organized by Media Center in Čerlovica with the support of ANMIK. Our panelists are Nenad Radosavljević, leader of National Justice, Miodrag Milicevic from the NGO Active, Dejan Nedeljković from the social political activist from Zvečan, and Ilija Biševac, leader of the Citizens Initiative in Zubin Potok. Welcome once again. Elections in the four municipality on the north, Severna Mitrovica, Leposavic, Zvečan and Zubin Potok were held on 23rd April, and the mayors of these municipalities, Albanians, have given their oath on the 19th and 25th of May, and the situation became complicated on the May 26th when Kosovo police helped these mayors to enter municipal buildings despite the resistance of the local Serbs, by which tensions on the north of Kosovo risen again. The goal was that the mayor from the Albanian community start their work. All this, as we know, led to the conflict between citizens and KFOR members on the 29th of May in Zvečan, during which several dozens of KFOR soldiers were injured as well as citizens. From that day on, protests of Serbs in the three municipalities are ongoing, and it's the 12th day now, and they are asking for withdrawal of the Kosovo Special Forces from the buildings, and that the mayors do not appear to work, and to release the Serbs arrested in the riots who are in detention. All this led to worse relationship between Kosovo and international community. They are asking for de-escalation of the situation, new elections, and return to the dialogue. Considering that our panelists today are coming from these northern municipalities, from Leposavić, Zubin Potok, Zvečan, and Mitrovica North, at the beginning I would like to ask you to briefly comment on the actual situation, which I would say it's not usual and normal, and we know from media what is happening in front of the municipal buildings, except from Mitrovica North, where there are no events. But how would you describe life of ordinary people in this situation? Is there any fear? How people live? Can they exercise their rights? And what changed after May 26th, that is, after the new mayors were elected? Mr. Nedeljković, you are from Zvečan. Tensions were high over there, so we can start from you. Respect to all of you, I'm Dejan Nedeljković. At the moment, situation in Zvečan is calm, but you never know, because the situation changes from every hour, and there could be new incidents. But consider that major incidents happened on Monday, or respectively on the first working day, when they should appear after the municipal buildings were occupied by Kosovo forces. I can now say that people are calm, and in a smaller number every day. Regarding the goods in the stores, they are less and less every day, and in most of the stores and markets on the north, the goods are supplied through irregular ways on north. But I would like to go back to the beginning when you said that the municipal buildings were occupied. I am someone who, back in 2015, when we were moved from Serbian to Kosovo system, I suggested to build new buildings for Kosovo institutions or Kosovo municipality, as it was done in Mitrovica, but then members of the Srpska list were not interested in this because they expected that they will be in power for all of their life and that they will spend all the time in that building. And at the end, we saw what happened, and many Serbs were injured, many KFOR soldiers in that incident, and everybody saw that it was actually a good idea, and that we see that there are no problems in Mitrovica North because they have new building and it functions in a Kosovo system and the other one in a Serbian system. But the problem in Zvečan is that the employees of the local governance and other employees who are placed in that part where the KFOR soldiers are surrounded with concertina wires, schools are not working, social institutions are not working. the institutions for employment. So a lot of these people cannot go to work. It is a big problem, and you saw that we have improvised something. You see that something is happening every day in front of the barricades or the fence of KFOR that is set up there, where people would sign in or check in that they appear to work in front of that fence over there, and we can see that they are having different events like tag of war or playing football or something, because now the relationship between KFOR soldiers and Serbs are relaxed, and removing of the concertina wire is maybe leading towards a solution that KFOR and Kosovo police will withdraw from this building, and that we can somehow return, and in a way international community requested special forces to withdraw from these buildings, and the newly elected mayors should work from their villages actually. Mr. Milosavljevic, how would you describe current situation in Leposavic? Life of ordinary people in your municipality? How do they live? Is there any fear? How they exercise their rights? And what generally changed in comparison to the period before new mayors were elected on May 26th? The situation is more relaxed in Leposavic. In the previous days, after communication was established and close relationship between KFOR and citizens who gather over there. And this is a good thing, and it shows that it will continue, this process will continue, and that at the end tensions will be lowered. But we should return to the beginning. Who did all of this? Who created the problem? We have to ask ourselves. Before all, the problem was created by the regime from Belgrade, that is Aleksandar Vučić, through the criminal structures leading Serbian list, and when they decided not to take part in the elections, which they have done at any cost, and people were forced not to participate in the elections, and it is the origin of all problems. Another problem that followed is Kurti, who unresponsibly decided that mayors should start working in these buildings, municipal buildings, at any cost. After the Serbs left these buildings and local government. This is a problem that I tried to timely indicate, and I proposed to Besnik Bislimi that these structures that were established or being established because they do not have legitimacy, my suggestion was because they cannot exercise their functions in a proper way, to establish temporary institutions from different ethnic communities and political structures, and to exercise temporarily the function of the mayor until new elections are organized. However, that was a little bit before May 2nd, when Kurti and Vučić met in Brussels, and probably there was no time for something like this to happen. But in any case, if there was a goodwill, Kurti could not insist that mayors should start working in their office in these buildings. And it was a major mistake, and he created a problem with the special police forces, which were supposed to provide logistic support for the mayors to enter these buildings. Now that we establish who is the cause of all problems, now the problem is not only with these protests. We have to ask ourselves also, who is the one who protests over there? It is above all the structure of the power which is responsible for everything, and who is now trying to return in their office chairs at any price and many benefits that were provided by the positions that they are used to have. They are the cause of all problems, but besides them, there are structures created by them. Those who are putting up flags, banners, posters, who are doing nothing but have salaries and who are now very interested in their status not being changed or not to lose their salaries, because they think if the structures do not return to these buildings that they will be put in such a situation. This is also a problem because alongside with them there are people who from patriotic reasons are protesting and who are fighting honestly, not knowing that it is about a major manipulation and that the people in power are playing games with them and making them risk their lives. Besides that, I think that the patriotism on the north of Kosovo became more popular than realism, and even people who are aware and who know who created the problem, regardless of that fact, they are deciding for a more pleasant form of appearance, that they are supporting protests, and in that way not blaming the structures who created the problem. And I am sorry, I feel sorry for all these people who are exposed over there, maybe even in danger to be injured, and I'm sorry that they are being discredited in this way and by manipulation from the people in power. And now, after an intervention by international institutions and organizations, they, however, realized that it was too much to react against KFOR, because KFOR is a Kosovo peaceful forces and they are here to be between two conflicting parties, to create the barriers and to prevent serious conflicts, and we should understand that. But on the other side, KFOR as an organization, they enjoy high reputation, and these young people who reacted in the way they reacted in Zvečan, they do not have any political experience and they do not know that KFOR is really an organization that is trustworthy among citizens and that they are welcome everywhere among the citizens. And now they are trying to relax the situation on different events with KFOR soldiers, to socialize with them. They have removed this concertina wire, and it is a good thing, but it's a big minus and negative thing for all those who created this problem. Thank you, Mr. Radosavljevic. Mr. Bishevac, question for you. What is the situation in Zubin Potok? In contrast to Zvečan and Leposavic, there are no KFOR soldiers in front of the municipal building. I would start with the beginning of the problem. Everything started with withdrawing from institutions, and I, as one of the opposition representative, I wanted to show that Pristina cannot function by unilateral decisions, and there were elections on which we, as a civil initiative, did not want to participate because we considered that there were no conditions, and that I, as a local politician, I did not want to ask my voters to go into containers to vote. And unfortunately, we came to the situation that we all expected, and the elections took place, and the newly elected mayors who were elected with approximately 200 votes. They wanted to appear at the work on 26th, and which is absolutely unacceptable. And we warn international communities and their representatives that it must not happen and could not happen, this situation. We know what is their legitimacy and how many people turn out for the elections, and we think that this conflict and the escalation of the situation is because everybody was quiet, nobody wanted to react. International community should have reacted. Unfortunately, now they did react, but the situation is different. They should have reacted much before to prevent the escalation. I was with the citizens on that day. I must disagree with Mr. Radosavljevic that because all the members of Serbian list and municipal directors and many people were forced to go to the protest in Belgrade, and I was among people who do not did not want to support the politics of official Belgrade, and on that day I was there in front of the special police forces, and I asked him to call the newly elected mayor to talk to the people who gathered in front, because there were more people gathered than the voters that he had. And 2 days later he published a photo on Facebook showing the police beating the people that he was supposed to represent. And now we are in the situation. There were peaceful protests in Zubin Potok. There were no major incidents, but on the first day, Kosovo Special Forces of the Kosovo police, they spray tear gas and throwing shock bombs and enter forcefully in the buildings. And I think that violence and force is not the solution. And I think that the newly elected mayor could have his office in village of Chaber and not to send special police forces to bare-handed people. We have peaceful protests today, and people are still trying in a peaceful way to express their dissatisfaction, and now international communities so that this act of violent entry in the municipalities is not functioning, and people at the moment are scared. Children are not going to the school, and we have this temporary or provisional institution where people worked and starting from the basic conditions for life, for medical insurance, for social services, for employment services, where people had to report today. Now these institutions are not working. One of the buildings in which special forces are located, we don't know what to expect, and I absolutely think that this should not have happened, and that this could have been prevented by a dialogue. And the elections themselves, we saw how they happened, and Serbs indicated, and they have their clear requests for Pristina to withdraw these special forces, and it started by a forceful taking away of the land in Zubin Potok. And here the law was not respected, and the government in Pristina should realize that we, people in the north, regardless we are in the north or south, we are all residents and citizens of Kosovo, and they should speak to all the people, not only with Serbian list, because they do not represent all the people, and we saw what support they enjoy. And I'm saying that we must have dialogue and better solutions. We will see what will happen further. We see that new elections are being planned, and we think that they should be a lesson for us to get involved, and that simply without having Serbs in the institutions we cannot accomplish anything. Mr. Milicevic, you are coming from Mitrovica North. There are no events or protests as in these three municipalities, but you have new leadership in the municipality, and has that started working, and how would you describe the situation? You heard the other speakers what I said, and what changed comparing to the period before May 26th when new mayors were elected. I don't know if anything changed or nothing changed, but it is clear that this leadership was elected, and everybody understands that despite all the warnings from the international communities to local structures, and when I say local structures, I'm referring to Kosovo government. I think that representatives were elected, including mayors for all four northern municipalities. They really do not have any legitimacy, and this was assessed even before the election process took place, and I will explain this in the following statement. The biggest problem is that there is no question how the municipality of North Mitrovica will function. This will change after future elections, and we hope that the people who are more responsible will come and win the elections, and that the situation will be calmer, and that this situation will return to the political field where everything should be solved. But what happened prior to the elections, not only the fact that Serbs left the institutions, but we also had a misfortunate series of situations which were not used in a good way. When I say misfortune events, I'm referring to the things that should have been solved in Ohrid agreement, for example, where a solution had to be found, and major chance was missed, and now we are all commenting about the consequences of all the chances that we missed. And in this moment, it is clear that these people who are elected, and you asked specifically about North Mitrovica, they do not have legitimacy. They have political power and legal obligation to implement what is foreseen by the law, but they do not have any kind of communication with the majority Serbian population. We can now speak about many consequences, but I would like to focus on what should be done now, and how can that be done, and is it realistic? 1 week ago, as an organization, we published our statement and our proposal how this situation could be solved, but we also have had other examples coming from international communities foreseeing different steps, as we can say today, about the escalation of the situation. But we have two sides here. We have Belgrade in this moment, who is far more cooperative comparing to the Pristina. What are their motives? It is clear, because the process of integration was agreed back in 2013, and some measures were taken towards that integration. But on this moment, we have Pristina on the other side, and Mr. Kurti and the whole government, who do not want to see and recognize needs of the Serbian community in the north of Kosovo, and therefore now we have far more complex situation described by Nenad, and we all know that this was not a proper solution when the political fight. But we should now see how to overcome the situation, if it is possible to overcome this problem in a short period of time, so we can return the story to the political field. Our request, and not only our request, is for the special police forces to withdraw, and I would like to emphasize special police units, not the regular police units. Regular police units should be there, but the special police forces created serious problems in the last year to all of us, and including personal experience that I had with them, but I will not talk about that. And this will lead to total removal of tensions that are present now on the north of Kosovo. However, another problem remains, and it is about political request about creating or establishing association of Serbian municipalities. I am pretty sure that it will not happen in a short period of time, but it is necessary to start political talks about the way and who will be included in the talks about possibilities to establish association with the Serbian majority population. And this is also a request of the international community. Serbian list has different requests, but international community was very explicit, and Mr. Escobar said in his last visit that he said, I'm quoting, that the association will be established with or without this government. This is the request to come to the ideal scenario and to have Serbs participating in the elections on the north of Kosovo. And this is a legal request that should exist in this process, and political will should be shown to initiate and return the story where it belongs. And the last step is the elections themselves. and there is a model how to organize these elections. We have legal provisions, but at this moment, I personally think that the proposal of Mr. Osmani, chief presiding of OSCE, is by far the most pragmatic model for seeing this interstep by which OSCE would, in the absence of the municipal authorities, would take the responsibility to return the story to the political level. Of course, I am talking about us now as a society and as someone who belongs to the Serbian community on the north of Kosovo. Our obligation is to secure that all of those who want to take part in the elections, like Mr. Bishevac and any others, they have to do it without any obstacles, without disturbance, without any pressure, so that we have a valid process on the north of Kosovo with participation of everyone who wants to take part, either as candidates or voters. And now we are returning to the zero position, to the position that we were in a few years ago. Now we are back in the political level, and this would be ideal scenario. So we could talk about meaningful political talks and participation of the Serbs in the political life in Kosovo. Before I give floor to my colleagues, a question for everyone: how do you assess the resistance of the Kosovo authorities against United States of America and European Union? It could it is clearly seen that the government in Pristina do not want to listen to anyone and is having unilateral moves and decisions. We had Brussels agreement who directly referred to the Serbs on the north and south and integration and participation in elections, and the Brussels process should have installed trust in people that they should believe in these institutions and that we should try and build our position, we as a Serbian community in society, through the institutional framework. And now we have the last government which by its decisions have caused mistrust of citizens. And I'm talking about expropriation, where they are violating all legal provisions, and we have several court proceedings for which we know how they are being led, and people do not trust in these proceedings. And if we are going to new elections, we have to start from the beginnings, and literally we wasted 10 years, everything that had been done. And the government in Pristina should realize that these people will live here, and they should start to build trust in institutions and to give rights to the people and to secure that the association should be established. And I'm not someone who is pro-association, and I don't think it's a very important thing for the Serbs, and it was only one step that Serbs believed and because of which Serbs took part in the elections. But the association, not even today, is not being established. And what would this association mean? It would mean institutional protection for Serbs, for them to have some kind of protection. And it could be seen in previous days that Serbs and Albanians do not have people as ordinary citizens, but we have institutional violence by the government, police, courts, and judicial system. And we all realize that we have to go back to dialogue. The Serbs on the north and on the south to feel safe, and that they know that there is a rule of law here, that they have some fundamental human rights, and I think that this is the only way to have peace. Mr. Milosavljevic, how would you assess the resistance of Kosovo government towards international community? I think against United States of America and European Union, and what are the mechanisms of international communities against the Pristina? Based on my experience since 1999 and my work in UNMIC as an advisor, to the head of UNMIK mission, I have experience with how the international community functions, what we refer to as international community. They're pretty inert. Whatever they intend to do, they do it very slowly. But when they start doing it, it is very difficult to prevent it. So I expect that the measures taken by the United States against the government in Pristina, that they will be extended, that they will yield result. Of course, they have mechanisms, and it is well known that they have mechanisms to make them cooperate and respect peace and order and discipline, both Pristina and Belgrade. And at certain point of time, they will do it, but they are inert. It is happening slowly, but it will yield results. I would also like to clarify something else to the citizens on the north of Kosovo. They must know well what happened in 2012. The process of integration of Serbs was initiated into Kosovo system, and I'm talking about judicial system, police. So we were integrated. We integrated local governance as well after the elections. Then, for these 11 years, we became functionally dependent in many areas in our life from the institutions in Pristina related to cadastral office and many other offices for documents. It is going slowly, but it is going somehow, and we became dependent functionally, even with the bills and invoices from the banks and extracts from municipality from Pristina. And last year, from July, the court and the police and local governance, all the people that is Serbs are withdrawing from these institutions, and the space is created to be fulfilled by the government in Pristina with the police forces, because we do not have other police forces in the north that will be formulated or established differently, that will be independent. Since then, the process of entry, taking over and establishing sovereignty on the north of Kosovo, which was not the case before. Which means who planned this and implemented this for 11 years, he created this very well, and the government in Pristina had major success, and Serbs on the north of Kosovo do not like this, and Association of Serb Municipalities would provide some kind of independence for us, and this didn't happen, unfortunately. And this has to be balanced, and this is the path for us to stabilize things. But the elections are mandatory, and it will happen very soon, I think latest by September. Shortly, regarding communication of Mr. Kurti with international representatives, and I'm thinking here about the Quinta countries and European Union. I cannot understand it because of the huge damage that was made, that was caused by unpopular measures on the north of Kosovo, because some of this damage cannot be repaired or can hardly be repaired. The trust that Serbs have in Kosovo institutions and central institutions has never been lower, and at this moment you have almost unanimous stance or opinion of all Serbs on the north of Kosovo, regardless of their political belonging. They absolutely have huge mistrust and resistance towards the government in Pristina, and many times I spoke that it is hardly difficult to understand that these men do not understand that the majority of almost everyone of the Serbs in Kosovo, they see this government as enemy government, And I would personally ask myself, if I was him, what am I doing wrong? And I would ask myself this much before the damage was done. If he was sincere with his intentions, what is it that he is doing wrong and what needs to be changed? I'm saying this with full rights from the reason that I'm one of those people in Kosovo, and I'm still insisting on political dialogue and no other solution. And on my direct question for the Prime Minister and his deputy and other representatives of the Kosovo government, how come that there was no political dialogue, and how is it possible that this political dialogue and political representatives who had to be sent to the north of Kosovo for communication with the political representatives in power and those in opposition like Mr. Bishevets and other, to send special police unit and to establish some kind of zone which has a high risk for conflict. So you have total absence of dialogue, institutional and any other kind, with the Serbian community on the north, which is simply forced to act now in this framework that exists now. And now that the Serbs or their representatives left all the institutions and left the empty space there, this can be solution, but I'm afraid that it will not be sustainable if these conditions are not fulfilled. It will only be partially solved with totally dysfunctional municipalities, which will function only technically but not functionally as they should have. I would try to go back to and be brief about this question. The whole problem was created at the moment when Kurti was elected in power in Pristina. At that moment, on the north, the whole politics of Kurti is based on the hatred towards Serbs, especially Serbs in the north. And why am I saying this? The first measure that he took when he became prime minister is that during the COVID crisis, he did not allow people to be vaccinated in Kosovo, so people had to go to Rashka. The second measure was to prevent Serbian elections on the north of Kosovo, so we had to go and vote in Rashka. And although the police function regularly, he brought special police forces to the border crossings of Jarinje and Brnjak. They have established a checkpoint or base, or how can we say it, call it, name it. They have regular police patrols with Serbs and Albanians. There were no problems. There were no needs in Zubin Potok and Leposavic to have special forces. The third measure is that special police unit, which in the meantime appeared on the north, did not listen to the regular police officers wearing police uniforms, specifically Mr. Filipovic spoke about this in Rashka, because they had a million problems regarding criminal offenses that were reported, and they wanted to sanction this, but they had resistance of the special police unit, who said that they cannot do that, and they are here now, and that's it, end of the story. And due to this reason, Serbs left institutions, which was, according to me, is wrong. I'm someone who was against for the Serbs to withdraw from police forces, because I knew that then they will bring regular police forces and special police forces with Albanians only. So why it was done in this way, I do not understand, not even today. But what is not clear to me also is, after this disintegration in this period, only 2 weeks later, although representatives of Serbian list, after they left the parliament, 10 new representatives returned. So Kurti could not change the legal provisions. But when there was a last change of the constitution, and when the Serbian Liberal Party was there, and when Rada Trajkovic as a parliament representative, there was another one deputy who deputant who voted against these decisions. So this decision from them that somebody else will vote and that because of that they are returning to the parliament. And also it is not clear to me why they boycotted local elections in the north. And I think they are also guilty besides Albin Kurti, who is implementing force against Serbs. And it is representatives of Serbia list who are responsible. As long as they are saying that they have left institutions, they are still receiving salaries. And why they did not take part in the elections? They could have participated and won elections and give a deadline of 10 days to Kurti to withdraw special forces. If they don't do it, they'll have 3 months period to organize new elections and to go around and around until all the budget is spent. And I think that he will also have problems with the Albanians who live there now. This is the most serious reaction of the American administration in Kosovo, and for us it is encouraging, but as long as it is only in theory and not in practice, it means nothing to me. And this deadline given to Kurti to make decision in line with the conditions given by Escobar and others a few days ago, what he will do regarding conditions said to him, we'll see what will happen. All the sanctions that they said that they will introduce against Pristina government and Kurti and Minister of Police Svecla, we will see if that will happen in practice, if anything of what American administration said. If anything happens in practice, I will be very satisfied, and maybe it will lead towards new parliamentary local elections in Kosovo. Thank you. Now we are moving to the questions of the journalists. Are there any questions for our panelists?
Fitim Gashi, journalist in Koha Group in Pristina. Beyond what you already stated, the conditions for returning to normality in the north, there were constantly critiques that in a way the political pluralism was killed in the north. What should happen now to have political pluralism so that we can have other entities there as well? Because in a way, Serbian list, with the help of Belgrade, in a way killed other political parties who do not seem to be able to win votes in the north.
I would try to answer the question. What needs to happen? Let's remove all the conditions set up by Serbian list and international community. Let's see the conditions of regular people who are protesting there, cannot go to their work. The conditions are for newly elected representatives to withdraw from institutions so the people can go back to work. This is first condition to normalize the situation. If this happens soon, and if there is no other mechanism, as if I remember well, if the municipality does not function for 3 months, then new elections should be given. And I stated Article 72 law on local governance, which says that 70% of the signatures of all citizens, you can demand for new elections for the mayor, and in which other Serbs, except for the Serbs with Srpska lista, would participate. And I believe that I will not boycott these new elections, and we will see if we will have pressure from the Serbian list. And what I know for sure is that they have lost their legitimacy in Serbian people, especially after barricades in October until December, after which they simply left after being ordered by Vucic. But if Kurti withdraws mayors from these buildings, and if they continue to work from their villages, and if we manage to gather signatures from the local Serbs, I think that relatively soon we can have new elections by September or October, and pluralism on the north with all the actors involved from the Serbian major community in the north, which should participate in this system and function in this system. I absolutely agree with Mr. Nedeljkovic that the pluralism was killed in the last few years on the north, and I, as a political activist, I suffer different pressures from Serbian list and from official Belgrade, and several times they named us with traitors and Kurdish Serbs and different names. But now people realize that the ratings of the Serbian list is low, has decreased, and they brought people to this position, and it is shown they showed what they value, and they do not have integrity, they do not have any democratic decision making, because they are only listening to one man. And I think if there are new elections, I would like to invite all political activists to get involved, to express our opinion through political fight, to develop our democracy and pluralism, to hear the other side. And as I said, international community and international representatives didn't do their part, and I was not invited to be present in different meetings, so our voice could be heard. The Serbian list was favorized by the government in Belgrade, but also, believe me, also by the government in Pristina. It is clear from the election process, and we had many irregularities, and we know how Serbian list won votes despite all the complaints that we filed. We didn't get any decision from Pristina, which means that Serbian list was good for Pristina and for Belgrade, and they brought us to the situation in which we are now currently. And now we absolutely have to get involved and develop democracy and decision making, to raise our voice against Serbian list and decisions of the government in Pristina. It's a good question. Pluralism being killed, it's really a good and proper question. You know, the dictatorship from Belgrade through criminal structures who are governing Serbian list have developed mechanisms to stay in power. It came to the level of fantastic level, like nowhere else in the world they have these mechanism to threaten, to bribe, to scare people, intimidate people. It is not even realistic to expect anything to happen regarding pluralism, and not only that, but also that an individual may be elected as a local representative means nothing, and it is not a pluralism, and it is only an attempt of an individual from the community who was brave enough to stand up against this scary organization. These mechanisms do not allow for anything to be done in this regard, and the upcoming elections will definitely be won by the Serbian list. And whose fault is it? Of course, Serbian list had support from Pristina because they suited them for certain issues. We can talk about details now, but we don't have enough time. But international community in general for 20 years already didn't do anything in this regard to relax the situation regarding the political organizing on the north of Kosovo. At the beginning, since when the international community came here, there were some organizations like NDI and some others who did something regarding the development of political structures on the north of Kosovo, but now we do not have these kind of organizations, and this is a major problem. The pluralism and the responsibility for it lays with the government in Pristina and international organizations, but it can all be done through pressure of international community against Belgrade. It's because people are afraid to sign the support for someone to be a candidate. The fear is so big fear, and they're so scared to do so. I would like to relate to what Miško said, specifically to give answer to this question. Gabriel Escobar specifically said a few days ago that the appeal mentioned by Mr. Milicevic, that we all signed the appeal for peace. I don't know if you heard about this in the media, that this is a good thing. And he said that there are Serbs that you can talk to. So this is appreciation from an American representatives, and means a lot to us. To indicate to the government in Pristina and in Kosovo that there are Serbs in Kosovo who know the situation in Kosovo better than the representatives of Serbian list. Do we have any other questions? If there are no questions, I have a short question. What sanctions can be imposed against Kosovo if they do not respect the recommendations of the United States and European Union, and what would you do if you are in the place of United States of America and European Union? They have mechanisms and they can use them. For example, visa liberalization can be postponed. It is a measure, and it is a very rational measure. Council of Europe also can be one of the measures. And I'm saying there are many mechanisms and they know about them. The question is whether they want to use them. Personally, if the situation continues, and we will see that even today, despite of the fact that Mr. Kurti says that there are no deadlines given to him during the last visit, but I think just like Dan and everyone else, that these mechanisms exist, and I personally, I am more for financial implications and to introduce them as first measure, as a warning measure, directly intended against government, not the citizens, because citizens believe these politics, and this didn't happen for the first time that they believe in some politics, which turns out at the end that is different than the one represented in the electoral campaign. But the international community and European Union has fantastic mechanism, which is accession funds, which can be first measure that can be imposed against irresponsible politicians. And if these do not give results, there are other measures. We do not have to elaborate on every single measure today, but there are many mechanisms and measures, and we saw this even in the former Yugoslavia, how it can function. Mr. Bishovac, what sanctions can Kosovo face if they do not? I absolutely agree that international community is responsible, and I'm sure that they can affect, and we saw many times that leaving institutions several times was an alarming situation, and organizing elections which they accepted, that is electoral results. The responsibility lies with them, and they can for example, financial sanctions against the government, and the question is whether they have wished they want to do so after the conflict that happened, which I do not support, the conflict that happened with the KFOR members in Zvečan. But on the other side, we have people who are revolted, and a situation which is persisting for a long time, and we saw the reaction of the people who are irritated by decisions, and now I guess that international representatives saw that they should not allow this to happen, and of course they should do something to de-escalate the situation and to have the situation uh, to organize new elections maybe in the future and to involve people to work in the institutions. For 10 years someone worked on this, and of course someone is responsible, government in Pristina for sure, but also in Belgrade and Brussels agreement. We saw that we wasted 10 years, and now we have some new employment and integration and new processes which should take place after these elections. There are serious problems that need to be solved, and I think that politicians here, official Belgrade and government in Pristina, they show that they are incapable and irresponsible and that they do not wish for peace. Because of the tensions and everything that happened, they have shown that they prefer this kind of situation to score some political points shortly. I support everything said by the speakers, and I agree with Mishko that the first step would be regarding the pre-accession funds of European Union. That should be first measure against the government in Pristina, as said by Mr. Milicevic, not against the people of Kosovo, but against the government of Kosovo. But what American administration can introduce as sanctions and what could give the biggest results is some kind of personal sanctions against Prime Minister Kurti and Sveclia, Minister of Internal Affairs, if they refuse the proposal that they will be forbidden to travel abroad to United States of America and other countries. So I think this would be one of the measures that could yield some results, or the best results. Will they do this? The international community, we will see. The deadline is today, so we will see what will happen until tonight. These pre-accession funds, if we prevent these funds, it will be against people directly, not the government. The reason why Kurti was very popular is visa liberalization and Council of Europe, but avoiding pre-accession fund and not to give access to this fund. It cannot only affect the government, it will also affect the people of Kosovo. But generally, the rating of Albin Kurti was not raised by visa liberalization or Council of Europe. Albin Kurti became Prime Minister 3 years ago with 54% of votes. After 1 year of after elections, he lost support in all the municipalities in Kosovo. It was recently, after local elections, when we expected for the government to fall. Not only he lost all the municipalities in all the major cities in Kosovo, Pristina, Mitrovica, and I expected for his government to fall then. But this nationalistic politics and the hatred toward the Serbs in the north, and these politics and bad relationship and treatment of Serbs in the north brought this nationalistic current, if I can say, and the rating and the voters. But at this moment, I'm pretty sure that he has below 50% of support. But I also think that visa liberalization and Council of Europe did not bring in popularity and support as much as these nationalistic politics. Regardless of sanctions, I wanted to draw attention to something else, and I'm sorry that I didn't mention. A few days ago in the Parliament of Kosovo, when they discussed about the crisis on the north, and on which Prime Minister Kurti appeared giving several names, 16 or 17 names, I want to draw your attention to you as media, including Albanian media present here, to express my dissatisfaction that Albin Kurti violated his authorizations by constitution. If there are grounded suspicions that these people are on this list, that the judicial authorities should have reacted and investigate whether they participated in any kind of violence on the north. But by his act, he violated presumption of innocence for people involved in these events on the north of Kosovo. It was a big disappointment that none of the deputies in the parliament pay attention to this fact, as well as media who missed the opportunity to ask the Prime Minister how it's possible for something like this to happen, especially from someone who is insisting on rule of law. Thank you very much for giving me time. As I said, I'm absolutely sure that before all United States of America, who are a main mentor to all the governments in Kosovo, not only to Albin Kurti, that they have instruments to prevent what he's doing, and we saw. But the question is whether they really want to do that. It is enough that Escobar mentioned sanctions, and it caused reactions by opposition parties in Kosovo towards Albin Kurti to show to him that United States of America is a mentor or sponsor to everything that is happening in Kosovo. But now only the question is whether international community really want to take part in this. I would relate to the question of Mr. Milicevic. It is very important to mention at the beginning you asked whether there is any fear, and I, as a participant in the peaceful protests, I am in fear because we have many staged processes and many lists with the names of people, and we will see what will happen with these people. We saw what happened with Radoš Petrovic and Dušan Obradović, who were arrested and who are still in detention, and we are asking why, and that's why people are in fear. And this should be one of the requests, this abolition for people who protested peacefully on that day, to take off all the measures against them, because now there is a number of 250 names on some kind of arrest lists, and if they continue with this, if they start arresting people, it will only rise tensions and disturbance among citizens. If there are no other questions, I would like to thank our panelists for their time and participation in the debate. I would like to thank others for participating in today's debate. Today's debate is over, and I wish you a good day.